yourself that you can't leave. That's not the truth. The truth is, you're terrified of who you'll be without the pain. They told you to be patient, to be understanding, to love harder, but no one warned you that blind tolerance would slowly turn you into a container for someone else's cruelty. Look at your life. You're exhausted, yet you call it commitment. You're breaking, yet you call it love, and here's the part you keep avoiding. If you stay one more year in this pattern, you won't just lose time. You will lose the last version of yourself that still remembers what self-respect feels like. This isn't about them anymore. It never was. It's about the moment you started betraying yourself and calling it loyalty. And if that truth stings, good, because numbness is far more dangerous than pain. This is not a comforting message. This is a confrontation. In the next few minutes, you're going to face a choice. Either you keep feeding the very thing that's draining your soul, or you finally cut the cord and reclaim what was always yours. There is no middle ground anymore. I remember the night it became impossible to lie to myself anymore. Not because something dramatic happened, but because nothing changed. Same silence, same half-hearted apologies, same cycle of breaking, fixing, breaking again. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at my phone, rereading a message that felt emptier each time I looked at it. And yet, I stayed. Not because I didn't see the truth, but because I had learned how to minimize my own pain, just to keep the connection alive. That's the trap no one talks about. You don't fall into toxic relationships overnight. You adapt into them, slowly, quietly, until the version of you that once had standards becomes unrecognizable. I started calling disrespect a bad day. I called emotional neglect, they're just stressed. I called my own anxiety overthinking. But deep down, my body knew. That tightness in my chest, that constant exhaustion, the way I kept rehearsing conversations in my head like I was preparing for emotional survival. That wasn't love. That was a system of survival inside a broken dynamic. And here's where it gets uncomfortable, because the truth isn't just about them. The truth is, I participated. Not consciously, not intentionally, but every time I stayed silent when something hurt me, every time I accepted less than I needed, every time I chose temporary peace over self-respect, I was teaching them how to treat me. That realization hit like a collapse from the inside, because suddenly I couldn't blame them for everything anymore. I had to face the part of me that was afraid of being alone more than being disrespected. And that fear, that's where the real prison was. But the breaking point didn't come from anger. It came from clarity. One day I looked at myself, not in the mirror, but internally, and asked a question I had been avoiding for months. If nothing changes, if this is exactly how it will feel 1 year from now, can I survive that? And for the first time, the answer was no. Not because I would physically collapse, but because something deeper would die. My voice, my boundaries, my sense of self. And that's when something shifted, because I realized the pain wasn't coming from how they treated me. It was coming from how long I had abandoned myself in order to keep them. That's when I understood something that changed everything. We don't suffer because of what people do. We suffer because we keep expecting them to be who they've already shown us they are not. And in that moment, I stopped waiting. I stopped hoping for a different version of them. I stopped negotiating with reality. Because the Stoic truth is simple, but brutal. You do not control their behavior. You control what you tolerate. And tolerance, when misused, becomes self-destruction. That's the part no one teaches you. They tell you to love. They tell you to forgive. They tell you to be understanding. But they don't teach you how to draw a line, a real line, one that doesn't move depending on how lonely you feel that day. So I started small. I didn't leave immediately. I didn't become strong overnight. But I began to notice. Every time I felt drained after an interaction, I wrote it down. Every time I felt anxious instead of safe, I stopped ignoring it. Every time I wanted to justify their behavior, I paused and asked, would I accept this from someone I just met? And slowly, something rebuilt. Not confidence, not yet, but awareness. And awareness is dangerous, because once you see clearly, you can't unsee. the illusion breaks, the emotional addiction weakens, and the version of you that once tolerated everything starts to question everything. That's when the real shift happens. Not when you leave, but when you emotionally detach from the need for them to change. Because at that point, you're no longer negotiating your worth. You're remembering it. And once that memory comes back, the decision becomes inevitable. Not easy, but inevitable. Now you stop negotiating, not with them, but with yourself. Because clarity without action is just another form of self-betrayal. So here is your exit plan. Simple, but not easy. First, stop romanticizing the pain. Call it what it is. Not love, not complexity, not just a rough phase. It is a pattern, and it is draining your life. Second, set a boundary that does not move. No long explanations, no emotional speeches. A boundary is not a request. It is a decision, and if they cross it, you act. Third, cut the emotional supply. No late-night checking. No rereading messages. No feeding the addiction. You are not healing if you keep reopening the wound. Fourth, return to yourself. Sit in the silence you've been avoiding. Write. Reflect. Face the parts of you that tolerated less. That's where your self-mastery begins. And finally, accept this. Temporary loneliness will never destroy you. But prolonged self-abandonment will. You are not losing them. You are reclaiming yourself. So decide, right now, not tomorrow, not when it feels easier. If you choose your rebirth, then say it. Clearly, I choose myself. Because this time, you don't go back.